Hey everyone, welcome back to the sessions. So today we're going to discuss about IELTS speaking. So as you all know, in the last session I gave you the overview of the whole test. Alright, so now we will try to understand more about what IELTS speaking is about. Alright, so I'm going to give you part by part information about the test. So shall we begin? Okay. So IELTS test is conducted between 11 to 15 minutes. Alright, I repeat, it is between 11 to 15 minutes. So usually on the day of exam, so you are going to meet a person who is the examiner, and he or she is going to ask you the questions in 3 different parts. Okay, so I'll give you a detailed information about what these 3 parts hold inside. Alright, okay, so let's start. So the examiner usually begins with the first part of the test. Alright? And here, in the first part, you basically have the questions on daily life. So it would be about people, culture, places, hobbies, neighborhood, the occupation, the festivals, or many other topics which all of us generally experience in our daily life. And the examiner is going to ask you about 5 to 6 questions about any one of these topics. Okay? So, how do you deal with these kind of questions? Alright? So, I'm going to give you information about it. Also, let's see what are the different parameters, okay, or descriptive indicators as we call it, that they have set in to evaluate your responses. Okay, so first one is actually pronunciation. So pronunciation means like the way you pronounce the words or the sentences or the intonation or the rhythmic tone that you use. So they evaluate you on that. Alright? But don't worry, they don't test your accent there. Okay? So that is the first part here. So the second one is fluency, basically. So fluency in the sense, the continuity of your speaking. So the way you continue to speak without any pauses or any self-corrections or maybe the self-repetitions. So all of this is kind of checked. But we need to avoid these things like giving pauses between the talk or maybe self-corrections or self-repetitions or using the fillers like such things should not happen. So we will see in the forthcoming classes like how do we overcome these problems in speaking. Got it? So the second parameter is the fluency part. Alright? So the third one is lexical resources. So what do we mean by lexical resources? It means the kind of words that we use here. So when I say words or vocabulary, what do I mean by that? Do I have to use words straight from a dictionary? Not really. They are not looking at it. So what they are looking at ideally is the kind of adjectives or the adverbs or maybe the phrasal verbs or idioms that you use naturally while speaking like that. So they don't want any high-end words or the dictionary words which sound more academic here, which is not required. So you just have to use the vocabulary which is more suitable to the context. Got it? That is how the next parameter is, ideally. The last one, ideally, is grammar, of course, grammatical range and accuracy, as they call it. So, of course, they test you for grammar, where your sentences have to be error-free, and the kind of tenses or the prepositions or the articles or the modal verbs that you are trying to use have to be proper. Got it? That's one thing. And also, they want you to use wide variety of sentence structures, right, which they expect here in this parameter of grammatical range and accuracy. Okay, so I repeat that there are 4 different kinds of parameters they use here. First one, pronunciation, all right. Fluency, okay. Next one, lexical resources, got it? And grammatical range and accuracy. So these 4 areas that they look at in your answers. Okay. All right, now coming back to the format of what happens on the day of exam. So in part 1 of the test, so they're going to ask you questions, as I mentioned before, about the things which happen with us on a daily basis. People, culture, places, hobbies, neighborhood, anything of that sort, basically. And all of your answers have to be in at least 3 to 4 sentences, okay, which would actually give enough content to the examiner to check the level of your language. This is very important. Okay, that is one. So as I said, there are going to be about 5 to 6 different kinds of questions that the examiner is going to ask you, like that, right? So we will see. We're going to practice a couple of questions and answers in the forthcoming sessions, yeah? Alright, now in part 2 of the test, you're going to get something like this, which is called a cue card here. Cue card in the sense, the question card, where you would see a concept or a particular topic or a situation that is given to you, and you will have 3 sub-tests, close-ended questions, like basically WH questions like when, what, where, why, any of that, basically. And the last question is basically like explain why you do this, or why do you think that way, or why do you remember this so much. Such open-ended questions are asked. That is part 2. And here, this is the only section where you can actually see the question, right? And you're given 1 minute time to prepare on the question. And you will be given a rough note and a pencil by the examiner so that you can prepare yourself in that 1 minute. Okay, and you have to speak on the topic for 2 full minutes. So they say 1 to 2 minutes, but it's better that we speak for 2 full minutes so that we again give the examiner enough content so that they can judge us properly. So, how to answer these kind of questions? We'll see that in the next question. Right. Alright? Okay. Now in part 3 of this test, again this is called a discussion round. Yeah? First round is basically interaction round or the part. Second part is basically the presentation round, and part 3 is basically the discussion round. So in this, the examiner is going to ask you questions again on the basis of the concept of the topic that you got in part 2. Remember, if, let's say for example, you have got the part 2 question on a gadget that you actually purchased some time back in the past. So part 3 questions are also going to be about the technology or the gadgets that are used commonly, and the questions would revolve around only that concept. So here also there are going to be about 5 to 6 questions, and this section tests again like how well you can actually express your opinions or the general ideas about to deal with it? Yes, of course, we're going to discuss in the next classes. Yeah? Well, anyway, one thing that I want you to understand is that part 1 and part 3 are impromptu rounds where you're not given any time to prepare yourself, so you will have to respond immediately. Alright? Okay. So that's all in this video, and let me know how much did you like it in the next comment section, and also in the next video I'm going to come up with sample answers for all these 3 parts. Alright? Until then, stay connected. Thank you.